Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? Welcome back. I am so excited to talk to my guest today. I was on her podcast when she started hers, so of course, I had to have her on way at the beginning. So I will go ahead and allow her to introduce herself. So go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Britt Yenser, CTS. My pronouns are she, her. I am the AV manager at Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I am also the current HETMA Communications Chair, incoming Board of Directors for HETMA, the 3-year at-large position. I write for Higher Ed AV, and as Jen had mentioned, I also podcast for Heave. So, yep.
Yes, and the name of your podcast?
It's Brave Space.
Which is an amazing podcast.
Thank you.
Kind of touches on different things than what you would expect to hear from somebody in the AV industry, kind of like what I'm kind of doing here too, which I love it. So, Britt, talk about real quick what your HETMA at large position is going to be, what your roles are, and then just give a quick, because for people that don't know, idea what HETMA is.
Sure, of course. So HETMA is the Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance. It is a 501(c), I think. I don't know. Nonprofit. It's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And the goal of HETMA is to raise the profile of higher education technology managers, because for so long we have been seen in the industry as end users, when the reality is we are AV professionals with end users of our own. So HETMA provides connections, it provides professional development, and just provides a community of people doing similar work. Right now, I'm communications chair. So if you subscribe to the EduWire Smart Brief emails, I am the one who determines what HETMA content goes out in our portion of that newsletter. I do some of our social media, specifically X and LinkedIn, and I will blast out some messages on the HETMA Mighty Network. And then I am going to be on the board of directors for 3 years, and I am not honestly fully sure of what that is going to entail. I'm just very excited to step up in the organization that I love so much and, support everyone for that length of time.
Which I think is amazing, because that is a big commitment to do something like a volunteer for 3 years, right? Yeah. And that they have those positions. So for those that don't know, Britt and I were at the inaugural Higher Ed AV Awards last year at Infocom. I won the non-EDU category of Higher Ed Ally, and Britt, you won the
AV Professional of the Year,
which is, I think, amazing, because it is nominated by the higher ed community, voted on by the higher ed community. So to come in and get that award, do you think that award also helped you jumpstart some of the things that you're doing and that you've wanted to do because you had that support from your peers?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that HETMA in general really helped me to boost my confidence and feel better about being in the AV industry. And I was a PRISM scholarship recipient. So it was through HETMA that I got my CTS, that I got the resources and support and funding, frankly, that I needed to pursue that goal. And then I was just absolutely floored that people nominated me, and I was, the AV Pro of the Year. It absolutely opened doors for me, and that it gave me that additional confidence boost that I was needing in order to put myself out there. I think that the most obvious example of that is Northampton Community College is not my original institution in terms of being in higher ed AV. I was at a previous institution. And when I saw this opportunity pop up, I was really excited by it. And in looking at the job description, it wasn't I can do 100% of that thing, which a lot of women look for. Yeah. And I paused and took a breath and was like, I'm AV Pro of the Year. And,
yes, you are.
And that, honestly, it gave me the confidence to apply. So
And that's awesome that you brought that up because, that's what we're talking about, right? So, as people are listening, I'm still in the process of looking for what my next chapter is going to be. I'm going through the interview process. That literally, like right before this, I talked to a company about maybe doing some consulting for them. So I think what that award from Higher Ed Ally for me gave me the opportunity to say, the community, the higher ed community is loving what I'm doing. They don't feel threatened, right? Because I'm a salesperson. I'm not part of the community, but I've listened, I've learned, I understand from the standpoint of AV professionals that yes, you're, Britt, my customer, but you have customers. So we have to take that into consideration, that what I think is right for you in your technology manager position might not be right because you have a customer.
Right.
So you were at your previous institution, and how long were you at your previous institution?
About 8 years.
Did you graduate from there?
I did.
So were you student employee on the AV side?
I
Is
was.
it high?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a student employee all 4 years of my undergraduate career. Started first semester freshman year and stayed all the way through last semester senior year. And then I had left to pursue the career I believed I wanted at that time. So I was actually a high school English teacher for 2 years. I taught 10th grade English, and I was also a Teach for America Corps member. So I've always been very type A and very busy all the time.
Right.
But after my 2-year commitment with TFA was coming to an end, I realized that I didn't really like where they had placed me in terms of the state I was in. It was in Connecticut. It's too expensive to live there. Okay, let's be honest. That's where I was at. So I wanted to move back to my home state of Pennsylvania. And upon moving back, Craig Underwood had reached out and said, I see you're moving back. I'm going to have a position open. Would you be interested in returning to this line of work?
Yeah.
And I had to really think about it because I did really love teaching. But I realized this was an opportunity for what felt like more growth and frankly more excitement because, when you're teaching, like, especially English, it's like, am I really going to read the same 5 books every year for the rest of my life? Like, you don't know if I can actually do this.
Right. And I taught high school math. So, I'm I was the same thing as you. I went to school. Now I wasn't, I had different jobs. I didn't work on campus when I went to school, but, I was a high school math teacher. And it's the same thing. You get there and you're doing, now granted, I loved the math. I loved that content, but I taught 2 years in Ohio. I taught for a year in Las Vegas. And even back then, I started to see the change of what was happening within the education K through 12 field, right?
Yes.
And I was young, like you. And so it's like, do you want to stay here? Not that it's a bad career, but everybody's different. And it's like, do you want to stay here for forever?
Right.
So you decided to take it and work for Craig, who's amazing.
Yes. Oh my God, incredible. So yeah, it was, and honestly, when I started, I was like, I can always fall back, right? Like if I don't like this, I can always go back to teaching. It's kind of like a comfort zone. And then I never went back. I found a love for this field. And I think it ties to a lot of the personal values I have that also aligned with teaching. At the end of the day, your mission working in higher education is to give students an excellent educational and social experience.
Right.
And, I kind of just focus in on that value of like, at the end of the day, like the tech is very cool and exciting, but like my goal is to support students.
So coming from being a teacher, but when you were working as a student worker, you worked under AV and with the AV technology. Okay.
Yep.
So you had a background.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why, because it was Craig specifically who I'd worked for all 4 years.
Okay.
And, I was, according to him, one of the best work studies he ever had.
That's awesome.
In the top 5. And I know the other names too. They were before my time, but he talks about them fondly. And yeah, so it was like, hey, I have this background. I had worked for him so much that it extended past work study. Like they actually hired me as a part-timer because
Awesome.
I, was doing so much work, and it became, by the time I was a senior, I was doing much more elaborate things than you would expect for a work study. So that
Right.
there was, an underlying skill set that had been built. It wasn't like I moved back and Craig was like, "We're friends, you're hired." Like, no, like
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yes. You had the skill set.
yeah.
So you learned AV while working. So was it, and back then it was a little bit different than it obviously is today.
Mhm.
So what were some of the things that you were doing as a student worker before you moved in as a full-time employee? So what were you doing kind of as a student worker? What were some of your tasks that you were doing?
Yeah, as a student, I helped with some of the administrative tasks. So, like the communication regarding events and the scheduling of, myself and other student
Hmm.
workers. And then I would also do like basic classroom tech maintenance and support. You go on the service calls, and I would do some event stuff like recording and live
Right.
streaming and like providing your microphones and things like that. I would say, like, while the technology over the years has gotten obviously much more advanced, it also has become much smaller and lighter, which I appreciate so much, because back in the day, I was like carrying these big, heavy cases onto the campus shuttle to get to our other campus. And
So speaking of that, let's dive into that. So because I'm sure job descriptions are job descriptions.
Mhm.
And so you touched on, which I do, we're going to get to, but you did touch on the fact that when you read the job description for your current position, that there were some things that you couldn't check the box potentially.
Right.
So the one thing that I struggle with now when I'm reading job descriptions is I feel like it is a cut and paste. And I think you and I over different conversations have probably talked about it,
Yeah.
but the must be able to lift.
Yes.
I'm a mom. My son is 14. When he was younger, 25, whatever. Now he weighs 100 pounds. I wouldn't really want to try and pick him up anyway. He's 14. He doesn't even want to give me a hug. But when he was little, yeah, I could lift 25, 50 pounds. But you
Mhm.
see that on a job description, and as a female or a male or anybody that feels like they can't lift that weight,
Yeah.
what was that there when you were the student, or did you just do it?
I
Like, was
just
it
did it. I just
see?
did it. I was, yeah. And so I have the how hard can it be gene, which is a little delusional, but has also mostly served me well.
Right.
So, when I see things like you have to lift at least 50 pounds, my first instinct was I got to start working out then.
That see now, and I'm like, man, my thing goes, why do you have to put that on there? Because I'm probably gonna have to do that once. But you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
it's
and
not
that
like an
is the
everyday.
reality. That's the
Right.
reality. They put things on there where it's like you may perhaps possibly need to at some point do this thing. And you're like, well, how realistic is it that
Right.
I'm actually going to lift and carry 50 pounds?
Right.
But yeah, no, I saw that and was like, I could probably do that. I just gotta like go to the gym, right? Like, how hard
Right.
can it be?
Right. That's amazing. That's awesome. So you were at your previous institution for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
And over my conversations and when I met you, you loved it.
Yeah.
You loved it there. And I know that by the time I met you, you didn't work for Craig. You guys worked together. I always thought you
Hmm.
guys worked for each other in a way, but it doesn't matter. You're still kind of doing the same things, and you guys were at events together, and so that just, made it seem like it. But what was the change? What made you feel that you were needing another chapter, or your time there working was coming to an end? What were you going through? What was that mindset? Because I've talked to people that have been unemployed. I've talked to people that have decided to leave or got fired or let go or whatever the case may be. But it seems like, and I don't think we talk about this a lot, is when you decide to make a change, what's going on, and it's okay to make the change, but what for you, what was going on with you, your life, your career, what you were doing that you felt you wanted to make a change? Were you
Yeah,
looking? Did it just happen?
that's a good question. So I a year, 2 years ago, I have no concept of time, but I
Yeah, neither do
relatively
I.
recently, in the past 2 years, I worked with a leadership coach. His name is Dr. William Attaway. I cannot recommend him enough. He's incredible. But one of the things he taught me was that in order for an employee to be happy in their role, they need to be both earning and learning.
Okay.
And based on their personality, they might sacrifice one for the other over a certain period of time. But on a long enough timeline, you need to both earn and learn in order to
Okay.
be satisfied in your role. I unfortunately hit a cap at my previous institution, where it's like, I am no longer doing either of those things. I am just rote doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I knew I've hit this cap. I now need to search elsewhere where I can earn and learn. So I did the search and found the open position that I'm in now.
So it for you, the repetitiveness
Yeah.
of what you were doing on a day-to-day basis wasn't, it's not a bad thing. Some people love the repetitiveness,
Mm-hmm.
but for you, you wanted to be, it sounds like, challenged a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas, like, I became such a master of that role that I wasn't even thinking anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, that's not satisfying anymore.
Right.
Like I need a challenge. And that's not like every single day I want it to be difficult. Like no, but
Right.
there are times where like I want to be able to step up to something, and that opportunity kind of stopped happening there.
Okay.
And frankly, it was both learning and earning. I also,
Right.
because they had promoted me to a director title, which in the way the department was structured, that was basically as far as I could go.
Okay.
So, and in higher education, your salary is tied to your title. So it's like I
Correct.
am now capped. I can't make a significant jump in salary at this institution past this point.
And that's hard too, I think, because I know that I've had positions in my career where I love the organization, right? You love it there, you love the people that you're working with, and so when you have to make that decision of what's best for me and my family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether you have children or a partner or you're married, or if you have to take care of a parent or a sibling or somebody, what's best for me? And sometimes I I think that's hard
Yeah.
for people to understand that because they automatically want to go to, oh, you're unhappy. You don't like working here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, that you wasn't your case.
Right. No, it was just time. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you start to outgrow a role, and unless you are offered the opportunity to keep growing, you need to seek out that opportunity
Yeah.
elsewhere. And,
Yeah.
it was a lot of things in play. I think that HETMA and Higher Ed AV like really helped to catapult me into the seat at the table that I have now in the industry, and just gave me a lot of confidence and made me feel like, yeah, I can seek better opportunities. I
Right.
can do more challenging things. So why am I not doing that? And why, when you seek those new opportunities and you take on more challenges, yeah, you're getting a higher salary. Why would I
Yeah.
not? That's frankly, the salary I received was life changing,
Right.
So
That's awesome. Yeah. So when you decided that you wanted to start looking, how many places, where did you look? What did you do? Did you use your network? Were you looking at job boards? What did you do from a higher ed standpoint? Because obviously it sounds like you wanted to stay within higher ed,
I
correct?
did. Yeah, it was really important to me to stay within higher ed. So, um, I knew some people at my current institution, and I also like used higheredjobs.com, stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
think it was higheredjobs.com that I saw the original listing. And it was funny because I actually saw it quote unquote too late in that the interview process had already started. But I applied and they saw my resume and they were like, we'll just bump you to the second round. So I actually only did one interview.
That's amazing. So you must have a really good resume then. It's set up.
I'm proud of it, actually. Yeah.
Did you get help doing that, or did it while you were English teacher?
Yeah, no, I just use a template. I use one of the Microsoft Word templates that I thought looked pretty. I'm very into like aesthetics, you know, so it's just like I like to see a resume that is aesthetically pleasing and not just lines of text. So mine has like information in boxes and like little icons, like a little phone icon, a little email icon, you know, where it's just like make it look cute.
So for everybody that's listening, right? I mean, obviously you had qualities within your resume too, but the look of the immediate probably look completely set you apart. So anybody, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, I can tell you mine doesn't look like that. I might have to go back and revisit what mine looks like. So you got bumped over to the next round. So did you do any type of networking, or did you just apply and wait? Did you make any phone calls? Did you talk to anybody? Did you try to figure out who was the hiring manager or what the position was for, or did you kind of just apply and wait?
I applied. I knew the hiring manager. Okay. And that's the thing about AV, as you know, it's like such a small world. And the more niche you get, the smaller it becomes. So yeah, I knew the hiring manager. So I applied and then reached out to him and was like, hey, by the way, I applied.
Which is awesome. Yeah, because you know, I had chatted with Frank Pisano from the Bluefin. He's the CEO over there, and that was one of the things that I had asked him too. Was do you recommend when you're hiring for the person to try and seek out and send the personalized note? And he said yes too, because it makes you appear interested. It, you know, says like, I'm not just sending a resume just to send a resume to check a box to say I've sent so many resumes in a day. You know, I'm really interested in this position. So what was that conversation like when you reached out? Did you have a chat? Was there anything, or was it just like, okay, great, I'll let them know?
It was basically like, okay, great, I'm glad you did that. Also, you know, we've already done interviews, but like he kind of gave me the scope of what we're looking at and what next steps would be, and said that he would reach out, and then the process moved forward from there.
Awesome. So then what was that first interview like?
Well, it was supposed to be in person because it was supposed to be a pretty traditional round. Of the first round was over video conferencing, which I missed. And then the second round was in person. But it just so happened that the day my in-person interview was supposed to be, it snowed like significantly and the institutions shut down. So they chose to interview me over Zoom.
Okay.
So the one interview I had was video conferencing, and then some time had passed and I got the call that I was being offered the position, and I asked if they could give me some time to think about it. I actually took a week. I took a week to think about it. Yeah.
And that's good. Now, when you asked them that, what was their response?
You know, of course. And also part of that too was I had asked, while I'm thinking about it, can I come to the campus? Because I had never had the in-person interview experience. So I made sure to come to campus, meet people in person, tour around. Nice. You know, that helped me as part of the decision-making process. I didn't want to say like, oh yeah, I'll totally take that, having never even set foot on the campus.
In the campus. Well, of course. You know, and that's different, I think, from higher ed standpoint is you're not, you know, like in sales, AV sales, we usually are working from an office or we're working from our home office. And when we're visiting, we're out visiting multiple different people, right? Mm-hmm. Higher ed, you're working and you're visiting the same, you're going to work in an office, but yet you're going to visit kind of and manage and take on classrooms and auditoriums and all of these things. So yeah, that is probably extremely beneficial from a higher ed tech manager position to have set foot and see what you're going to take on. Because I'm sure, like in any job, they can paint a pretty picture, just like I can paint a pretty picture to somebody of what I can do, but in reality, can you really do it? Mm-hmm. So, so when you walked onto campus, what did you feel? What was that feeling you got when you were walking onto campus to say, is this really what I want to do?
It felt better and better and better as the tour went on. By the end of it, I felt like my decision was made.
That's awesome.
It was just like, yes, now that I have seen it and I know exactly what I'm walking into. And
right.
What I really appreciated was no one put on a dog and pony show. It was like, I'm getting your authentic self and I am getting exactly what this looks like on any given Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't like try to hide it,
Right.
So it's like, I want to know the reality of what I'm walking into.
Right. Yeah. So what is your title now at your current institution?
Yeah, current is AV manager.
AV manager. So then what does that encompass for you?
Yeah, so that is predominantly classroom technology, installation design, things like that. One of the goals of having this position was to bring integration in-house more than outsourcing. And funny enough, that was the one piece of the JD that I was like, I feel nervous because, for the past 8 years, I've been live events. Like I put it up and I take it down. But I talked to some of the people in my Hetman network. James King in particular gave me really good advice where he was like, listen, at the end of the day, no matter what the brand is, do you know what a switcher does? Do you know what a network switch does? Do you know what a touch panel does? Like, yes. Like, I know what all these things do. And so it's like, you just have to keep in mind, like, yeah, I know what these things do. And the rest will come. Like, I'm going to learn. So...
And that's the whole thing of there are so many companies out there that do touch panels, that do switching, that do DSP, that do AV over IP. But if you understand it,
yes,
and it's okay if you're walking into, you used one touch panel manufacturer and you've standardized on maybe the big name, right? And you come over to your new and they don't have that. That's okay. You understand the whole concept. So do you think going through and being a PRISM scholarship winner and getting your CTS, that helped you understand?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Type of stuff?
Absolutely. Yes. Like the studying for the CTS and passing that exam, like helped me and proved to me that like, yes, I have this very strong foundation. I understand signal flow. I understand like your basic principles and like, it's as long as you have a strong foundation that you feel confident in, you can continue to build upon that. And you need to continue to build upon it because technology is always changing.
Oh, constantly. It is constantly changing. And today's manufacturer and product might be gone for who knows what reason. And then somebody else is coming in, whether they got bought or go out of business or change names or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So reaching out to your network, right? Because higher ed is a unique entity where they do like to do their own in-house integration. So wanting to bring that on, do you have staff to be able to do that? Or is there a staff? Are you going to have to hire and find internal staff to do that? Like where does that stand for you?
Yeah, so there's me, my boss, and then I have a full-time direct report and a part-time direct report. So my job as manager is to help set the vision and the goals and standards and then help to launch. I will also be building the rack, and I, have my direct reports to help out.
So sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4 of you, correct? Are you the only woman or is there any more?
I have my full-timer is also a woman.
So it's a 50-50 split.
Yep.
Very nice. And is your full-timer student worker or full-time employee?
Full-time employee. Yeah.
Okay. So how long has this person been then at the university and understanding AV? Like how long have they been in this role?
3 years.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, and the only reason I ask is because it doesn't mean they need all of the knowledge, right? They want to be able to work. And I think, as you know, and I have a passion for pulling in youth into the AV industry and a passion for pulling in more women into the AV industry. And I think that those things are important to then be able to have, so that gives her now the ability to say, oh, I'm not the only woman here in this position. There's somebody else here that, potentially can relate to some things, just, on a day-to-day basis, that she might feel more comfortable talking to you about than going to, the other two, on your team.
Even in terms of talking about technology itself, I think that it's easy to feel like someone is talking down to you, even if that is not the case.
Right.
So sometimes it's nice to have someone who feels a little bit more peer-like, a little bit more like, okay, I can make some reasonable assumptions about our lived experiences that we might have in common. And when you talk to me, I might perceive it differently than if I was, getting it from someone else.
Right. Yeah. So the job description, let's kind of go back to that real quick. Yeah. How many things on there did you feel like roughly you may not have checked that box, or you weren't sure you could check that box?
Honestly, I think that as I read through it, I was like, I am 60% confident I can do this job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really important, because I think regardless, if you're looking, whatever you're transitioning, whatever it is, when you're reading those job descriptions, there should be a spot where you say, if I get and I feel I can do a percentage, I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. So you took it and you said about 60%. So the things that you felt you might not be able to check immediately, what were those kind of, like, do you remember what some of those were?
It was definitely like things that as they related to like design and installation, where I was like, okay, I haven't like personally done that. I have watched as other people have done it. I've been in the room, but like I haven't personally done that. So that made me a little bit nervous. And like, I don't know, that's what stands out to me. But that was the bulk of the JD. And then there was also like, support events, which I was like, yeah, check, can do in my sleep. That's fine. And, like manage other humans, check, can do in sleep, but yeah, it was just like the hyper technical like stuff that I felt a little nervous about, because I was like, I just, I'll give it a go. Just give it a go. Yeah.
So then, knowing that, how much then have you relied on, and I know you've only been in your position,
this time where
week 2, by the time this launches, you're probably going to be there a good month, I would say. So, but how much have you started to rely and reach out to your community and to your network, whether that is the HETMA community or just your outside network, from manufacturer reps to maybe integrators that you have worked with previously? Like how much of that have you kind of started to put in place, or think if, question comes up on, how are we going to mount, if you guys are using projectors to the ceiling, do I know somebody that I can reach out to make sure that we're going the right direction with it? Like, have you thought about that?
I have, yeah. I have some names in my head of like, this is who I'm going to reach out to when I hit this thing that I have to do. And even this past week, I had reached out on the Mighty Network and then directly to Craig, because I started to have a conversation about SLAs, and I was like, I know that we talked about this at some point. It turns out it was in the AVIT Slack channel that James created, but I was like, I know at some point we all talked about this, and I could have sworn I saved it and I cannot find it. And then Craig was like, here's the stuff I saved from that conversation. So,
Well, I will say that is one thing about working, I think, in education, regardless of what your role is, whether it's at higher ed or K through 12, whether you're the teacher, you're the non-teacher, you're the professor, you're not the professor. Because I know I do it too. We have a tendency to save a lot of things.
Yes.
I mean, if I look at my little shelf that sits right next to me, I have notebooks from years ago that I won't get rid of because it was when I first got into the AV industry, and I know I wrote something. Now I'm probably going to have to go through notebook, but I know it's in there.
Right. Yeah. You never know when you're going to need it.
No. So 2 weeks in, how has it been going? Are you happy you made the decision to move? Is there any buyer's remorse, as everybody talks about when you buy something? I mean, there's job remorse too. I mean, it's the same thing. Are you happy? Is everything going that as you were envisioning it?
Yeah, I'm super happy. I feel really good about it. As each day goes by, the more confident I feel. So this past week alone, we're doing 2 commencements. So we did one on our Pocono campus earlier this week, and then the second was today, actually.
Okay.
And I'm like, listen, again, I could do commencement in my sleep. Like anything
Right.
live event, I'm like, just throw it at me. I'll do it. That's fine.
Right. That's easy for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So events that come my way, I'm like, yep, that's just a box to check. And then I'm super, super excited for InfoComm this year because I get to walk the trade show floor with an actual purpose this year, of like, I know in the next 6 months, I am going to need to make a game plan for upgrading our classrooms. So I'm like actually looking for things now, which is exciting.
So going to that, then let's touch on that real quick. Are you looking at HETMA approved product? Or are you looking at?
I mean, that's definitely a good place to start, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of a classic, like, why reinvent the wheel situation of like, if other people in my vertical have already said, this does what I needed to do, it makes sense for me to start with a product like that instead of trying to figure out, like, will it work? Should I be creative with it? Like, no, just pick what works.
Right, exactly. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, well, thank you. I think this is amazing for anybody who's looking to do the transition, right? If they feel they've gotten to a cap, and I wrote it down, both earn and learn, because I had never heard that before, and that's amazing to think about. So I did write that down, and I think we need to, that needs to turn into a trending hashtag at some point, right?
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. We are so excited that you are thriving in your new role. Where can people find you? Like, where if anybody has a question or wants to hear you or follow you, where are you on the socials?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I'm really excited about your podcast journey.
Thank you.
I am on X, Twitter, the artist formerly known as Twitter, as Brave Britt. And then I am also on LinkedIn as Britt Yenser, and I am on the HETMA Mighty Network, Britt Yenser. So a couple of ways to find me.
Awesome. So thank you again for joining us. And guys, this is just one of those things that says, as you are out there looking, we are all more than words on a resume. And Britt, you amplified that just by saying, hey, I can do 60% of this. I'm going to take a shot. And that shot ended up paying off for you. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and real quick to your point too, it's like, I feel like my 60% was the employer's like 80 or 90%. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're all very hard on ourselves.
We are.
So just put yourself out there and see what happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And can't wait to see you at InfoComm. And guys, thanks for listening.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.